Hi, this is the What's New in IAR Embedded Platform Q2 2025 update. We'll talk about ARM, RISC-V, and VS Code extensions. My name is Rafael Taubinger, and I have here with me Niklas Schellman.
Yeah, hello.
So let's move on. The agenda for today. Great, so let's see what we'll cover today. First, an overview, and then we will highlight what's new on IAR toolchains for ARM version 970.1 and RISC-V version 340.1. We will go into the ARM specifics and also RISC-V specifics. Then we have the highlights for IAR VS Code extension version 132 for the build extension, and for the debug extension it's 142. And to finalize, we have a summary. So, great. As a part of our ongoing commitment to help development teams work faster, more securely, and at scale, we are excited to introduce all these new updates for the IAR platform. And these releases mark a significant step forward in how IAR supports modern embedded development. The key focus is making our tools more compatible with the reality of today's engineering workflow, which increasingly involve open source software, vendor SDKs, CI/CD pipelines, and distributed teams. And of course, we will also talk and mention all the various new features and capabilities and instructions we have in this upgrade to the IAR platform. So Niklas, can you tell us more about what's new for ARM and RISC-V?
Sure, so let's look into the first bullet here, open source and SDK code friendliness. So we worked a lot on making our toolchain more compatible with GNU, C and C++ language extensions. And this makes it easier for our customers to port projects from the open source community, and for our partners also to port their SDKs. And this improved GNU, C and C++ language extension support was enabled from our work on Zephyr for ARM. Okay, so modern build infrastructure friendliness is something that we worked on. So the idea is that it should be easier to use our tools in modern build infrastructure environments. So we added a cloud-based licensing system that supports our SaaS subscription-based model. There's improved support for automated workflows in containerized environments via build capacity and capacity tokens. And finally, we have support for named users with federated login. So currently you can use your Microsoft account to log in to our tools. So this is to make it easier for developers to access our tools anywhere. We also worked on improving the debug experience with externally built ELF files. We'll look into this later on, the details of that. Command line debugging capabilities for Linux has been expanded, mostly for RISC-V, where you now also can use the debug tools in containerized environments and from the command line. Of course, you can also use this from VS Code, and we'll look into that later on as well. Okay, so let's look at the details of this improved debugging of externally built files. So with this feature, you simply create a new project where you add an externally built ELF file. And with this, you can simply use the debugger as you're used to. You simply import the ELF files, you can use breakpoints, you can set any types of breakpoints, you can use watch windows and more of that. CStat has also been improved, so we support MISRA C 2023, that's supported, and also MISRA C++ 2023 is supported, guidelines 4.0 to 4.7. There's also an improvement in how you can export your CStat settings. So you can export a manifest file, and you can use this later on in CI/CD systems with CMake, Ninja, Makefiles, etc. Okay, we also added improved debugging of multiple images, specifically in our statics window in the debugger. So this makes it easier to sort of debug a situation where you have maybe a bootloader or multiple images in some way. Yeah, there's also a new option to display volatile variables in this window that wasn't possible before. So the IDE also has gotten some improvements, so it now supports language server protocol. So you can integrate custom language server in the IDE. We also integrated ClangD as a editor syntax feedback engine to provide a richer development experience. CStat, as mentioned, you can export a manifest file. So you can use this, you can export your CStat settings for use in a CI/CD system. HTML documentation is also something that's new. So we have replaced the legacy CHM help files with HTML files, and the plan is to provide this also online in the future. CMake project integration is a feature that existed on ARM. It's now also available for our RISC-V tools, and this enables support for importing and building and debugging projects based on CMake. We also have SARIF support, and this is a format for output of diagnostic messages and so. And this helps QA, security, and DevOps teams to centralize risk detection and align software development with enterprise compliance goals.
Great, and as always, we of course added support for many new devices, and we work very close with our partners, and as you can see, the list is very extensive. If you look, for example, at ARM, we included devices from above analog devices, GigaDevice, and Renesas, ST, Texas, and so on. Also for RISC-V, we have expanded the device support from Altera, analog devices, Andes, CodaZip, Nordic, and more. I can fully recommend you that you go to IAR My Pages, and then you can see the full list of supported devices. And if we move on, we have some ARM specific features that have been added, and we already mentioned some of them. So the first one here is Zephyr. So the Zephyr RTOS has become one of the most popular open source operating systems for embedded applications, and it's lightweight, scalable, and vendor supported, so making really a go-to option for many in automotive, IoT, and so on. But without professional tools, that could of course lead to some poor experience when developing with Zephyr. So that's why we added support for Zephyr in our toolchains for ARM. And what mainly that means is that developers can start using the IAR tools, and they can of course build right away. Notice that of course a license is required, but this of course reduces the setup time. Of course the integration, it's there, and it gives teams access to a toolchain, a trusted toolchain, and it works of course on a wide range of hardware platforms. So IAR's Zephyr support integration of course provides this confidence and bridges the gap between open source and commercial products in a really straightforward way. And there's also some documentation, of course, that you can access to learn more about it, but you can always start with the information from Zephyr.org or at IAR.com. Additionally, we added support for some selected C++ features. So, of course, there was some lack of missing features, and we expanded this support. So developers can, of course, then work with more modern, maintainable code, and we'll, of course, add more step by step here. And then also very interesting here is that we improved the debugger. So there are some additional RTOS awareness plugins that have been added. The first one is the Zephyr RTOS, of course connected to the support that we have, the official support for Zephyr RTOS. But we also have support here for PX5 RTOS, and then of course Cesium OS 3 and OS 2 have been added in the debugger. Moving on, Niklas, can you tell us more about the RISC-V specifics?
Yeah, sure. So this release we have focused on automotive and safety critical parts. So for automotive we have broadened our support for DSP and SIMD instruction set extensions. So we support several versions of the P extension, so you can select which one you need for your specific hardware device. And then we added support for custom instructions for some of our partners. Additionally, we added support for a lot of partners in the automotive industry. We also have a few debugger improvements for RISC-V in this release, so we support the serial wire debug interface, SWD. RISC-V semi-hosting, the specification is supported. We support VJ tag for Altera specifically, and we also did improvements around CJ tag.
Good. Moving on here, we also released the new VS Code extensions. So we have the IAR build extension and the IAR debug extension. And mainly what we have added was also Zephyr OS awareness and all the other RTOS list windows. So everything that it supported, of course, in Embedded Workbench is also there. Interrupt log, download extra images, and some extra debug capabilities. So if you have a quick look here, when it comes to the IAR RTOS views, of course, you might be already familiar with all the capabilities that we had in the IAR Embedded Workbench. But the same applies now if you work with the VS Code extensions. As you might know, VS Code is very popular, and we want to make sure that developers can work on the IDE of their choice. So you can even mix, work in parallel, or have some developers working with Embedded Workbench, others with VS Code. But as you can see, the list extends here. Zephyr RTOS, Azure RTOS, Free RTOS, Micrum, Sager, and more. And you get, of course, the task view and some optional views depending on the RTOS. Additionally, the interrupt log, that's also now available. It provides you, of course, very comprehensive information about the interrupt events. And, of course, a summary is available. And we also have the logs in the interrupt log window. So all very handy and easy to use. And then we have also the option for downloading an extra image that, of course, it should be added generated in the launch.json file. But that's, as we discussed previously, it's more and more common that you work with multiple images, and that also makes it easier to work in parallel in your current projects. And we also added a simplified launch for debugging. So as you might know, getting started with debugging in VS Code typically requires that you create kind of this complex launch JSON file. So with this new debug active embedded workbench project, you'll create a configuration that is minimal, clean, and to launch what then customers can customize with project specific settings. And this will, of course, accelerate this setup time and ensure that everybody across the team have the same setup. So this will, of course, make debugging much more straightforward from VS Code for everybody. And finally, this is, of course, what more we added. So we have a new IAR extension pack extension. So that means that you can install both extensions at once. Before you had to install them separately. So it's up to you if you just use the build extension or just the debug, or if you want to install both at once, it's now available. And we also added support for debugging MSP 430. That was not available before. And connected to our new IAR Cloud Licensing, there is now an extension that, of course, then also makes it possible to use the named users directly from VS Code. Great. So to summarize, of course, our ambition is to make our platform and all tool chains more unified and fit for modern workflows. As we mentioned, we added support for new extensions. We have Zephyr RTOS when it comes to ARM, the external ELF build files, the multi-images debugging, and then of course all connected to having better ways to work with CI/CD pipelines, containers, and so on. Also the focus when it comes to RISC-V about automotive and safety critical systems, where of course we added a lot of RISC-V DSP extensions, and also MISRA C, MISRA C++ 2023. When it comes to cloud native and scalability, the new IAR Cloud Licensing that we host now as a service, of course, makes it way easier and flexible to access the licenses everywhere and also manage them. And finally, the VS Code developer experience. So we want to make sure that people can use our professional tools, whatever of choice from IDE. And we added, of course, the RTOS awareness, debugging, interrupt logging, the simplified launch when it comes to debugging, and all about make it easier and modern and customizable for developers. Great. I hope you enjoyed this quick update. And if you want to see this all in action, make sure to go to IAR.com and do the try platform so you can get access to the latest versions. Or if you are an existing customer, then of course you can go to my pages and get access to the latest versions. Thank you.
Thank you.